Good evening, Tom.
Hello. So we're here for the second budget meeting, and we're going to start with page 19. We'll go through the general fund first, and then we'll go to some of the special revenue funds. And
Susan, I can't hear Tom.
We can't hear you, Tom. Can you speak up louder, please?
Page 19.
Sure. So we're on page 19.
Is that better, Kitch?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. We're talking about, this is the Board of Selectmen's budget. There is no change in this budget. This is pretty much the stipends for the selectmen. It's to pay the board clerk to do payroll. It's a contribution to project graduation, and then some monies for program services. So we're going to move on to page 21, which is the first selectwoman's budget. This has Susan and her executive secretary in this budget. There are some monies for dues and conferences. There is participation in the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, the Connecticut Council of Small Towns, the Middlesex Chamber, as well as program services. And then usually we do a biannual town report, and that's to pay for the cost of the printing of that report. Page 23 is the Ethics Commission. As you're aware, you have an ethics ordinance that has this commission in play. They act in certain times and as needed. So there's some funds for a board clerk, as well as for miscellaneous. Mostly the miscellaneous is paying for P.O. boxes and some supplies they may or may not need. Page 25 is the probate court. A few years back, the court had been combined and regionalized, and there is Portland, East Hampton, East Haddam, Marlborough. Marlborough is where the court is located. They pretty much had some additional costs this year because of microfilming and security upgrades, as well as they had previously been using fund balance to balance the budget to lower the cost to the districts, and that fund balance had been used up. Therefore, they don't have that fund balance any longer. So that's why you're seeing about a 15% increase. That's pretty much we pay what they request. Don't have too much say on that one. Page 27 is elections. This is made up of the two registrar of voters. They do election work. They do other tasks as required by the office. They do various training. They also do what's called a voter canvass. And then also there's election worker stipends. Those are for the people that participate and work the various elections. This year was a presidential election, so we do see about a 4.71% dip in the budget for next year, as we anticipate some savings throughout, but some supplies as well as some of the contract maintenance continues to be a high for us. Page 29 is the finance budget. The finance budget is made up of part of the finance director's salary. It's made up of a payroll coordinator, an accounts payable coordinator, a accounting coordinator, and a fringe benefits personnel. The rental use of buildings is pretty much paying Board of Ed custodians overtime for utilization of various buildings where the town returns and receives revenue back for those billings. So they instead of the revenue comes into the town general fund, and instead of charging those to a Board of Ed line item, that overtime gets charged to my budget. If it's not a park and rec matter, if it's a park and rec matter, then it gets charged to Fund 12. We have various service contracts for the various systems that we run. Conference meetings and dues we have audit. The audit is for the audit gets shared between the Board of Ed, the town, and the water and sewer. And we are in the middle of a 5-year deal there. Bank fees are usually, and there's supplies that we need to acquire now of days. We usually have to acquire things such as the bags and some of the stamps and some of the slips, and so there's some funds there. So this year, once after TD Bank had closed, they are covering for at least a year the fee for armored car service, so they're covering that. With data processing supplies to run the office, and the miscellaneous supplies are various things that do arise either via payroll software issues, CROG fees, even all evictions and move-outs run through there, consulting fees for whether it be some of the OPEB, or sometimes we need it for pension and sometimes for legal. So often when funds exist, we'll acquire computers for various departments, servers for the IT department is needed, office furniture for the various departments when required, and then car registrations, legal and debt, and some pension matters, and then mapping fees for the state chart of accounts, and that's about it. Page 11 is the collector of revenue. This office is just the actual collector.
What page, Tom?
This is page 31. Sorry, it's from, it's 0111.
Page 31, Kitch?
Page
Thank
31.
you.
So this is the collector. In this, the assistant collector gets allocated 50-50 between water and sewer, and the collector does not get allocated at all to the water and sewer. So it's kind of way it's been like that for years. The contracts is paying all quality data, which is our main software provider that does all the tax bills, and there's various components to that throughout the year. There's various stages, and they also house our online software where people can go in and look at the bills and things of that nature. They used to have it where you had to pay a fee for delinquent charges on motor vehicles. That had gone away in the past couple of years. Hopefully that will continue to be away. Page 33 is the assessor. The assessor is made up of the assessor and a half-time clerk. Service contracts are those for quality on one side, and then there's another a Tyler software that is used for the appraisal system, and they also have audit fees for personal property. We did not do those in the past couple of years, but we do need to get back into that. This year was an appraisal year, so it was handled through that, but those are funds that are set aside for auditing personal property. And kind of laid off with the changes. We had a change in the assessor twice over a 2 or 3 year period, so we had to lay off on doing that while the transition occurred.
Can I interrupt you for just a minute? There's a little feedback on. Okay, is it your phone? It might be feedback from a cell phone, so let's try that.
So Board of Assessment Appeals
No, it
is
isn't. I'm wrong.
no. Page 35.
Can you hear okay, Kitch?
I can, yes.
Okay.
In fiscal year, in budget year 16-17, that was a reval year, so there was a little bit higher. Now it goes back to the non-reval year. Also, the Board of Assessment Appeals training is within the assessor's budget too. That's why sometimes you'll see the assessor's training line be a little bit higher than other times, but that's where the training is maintained. Town Council, which is page 37. This is it's kind of a shot in the dark ballparking that we're only going to go up by 2.6%. Obviously, if you look back to what we've been spending, it's been higher. Hopefully some of these things will fall off. Some of the contract negotiations will hopefully fall off. Hopefully some of the planning matters will fall off. Others may come on. So again, that with as we said with engineering, legal is similar. It kind of flows with the activity that you got going on in the town. And generally, hopefully, there's some type of a revenue offset when you do exceed that number. Page 39 is the town clerk's budget. This is made up of the actual, the clerk, which is elected official, and the assistant. Majority of their expenditures are for indexing and recording, and trying to get all the records maintained and recorded properly. And this budget is only going up 0.62%. Page 41 is our central service budget. This is a budget where items for centrally located things are maintained. We had updated our rental fleet that hadn't been updated in about 7 years. It had been updated this year, so we have a little bit of an increase in our service contracts, as well as service contracts is kind of where the testing is for all the employees for their drug and alcohol testing. So that's another, there was some board activity that caused some of those expenses to go up slightly, so that we're accounting for those matters. Office equipment repair is just that, is equipment repair of various items throughout the town. Data processing supplies are any type of shared type of items for, it could be either a fax, a printer, a phone, some type of work that needs to be done by IT to go across various departments. Sometimes when you're talking about dispatch, sometimes there's fees, there's repairs over there we have to do. We have postage and advertising, printing, and publications. That's advertising and printing together, and that also is also for the whole town. Some of that does get charged back through in-kind for the Board of Ed. They also have a line item, but things that we put out to bid or for the Board of Education are items that are shared, such as the budget. That's our budget covers that. Travel and mileage is just that. It's covering travel and mileage for various people throughout the town. When they go out, mostly out of town to do things, could be if a person's using their personal vehicle in town on inspections, if one of the town cars is down, but we try to let the town cars be used. Office supplies, the office supplies are mostly maintained out of the finance department. We have things pretty much locked in a drawer or a file room. People have to request items from people in my personnel, and it's a way to keep ordering, obtaining order discounts by ordering larger in volume, as well as trying to keep control over where items do go to and are used. So it seems to be a good process there that we have going. Page 17 is page 43, which is 01017, which is your technology budget. That is made up of the technology director, Dave Kuzminski, who's here, as well as Kevin Armstrong. There is a part-time payroll. Those are generally the youngsters that work for David during the summer, and that help with the website and a learning program, as well as, and then others are charged directly into the town tech program itself. But that's been an ongoing dual commitment that we've done here with the town for years. The overtime is mostly the director's overtime for calls on alarms and any of the type of items that come in when they have to come in after hours, as that is a union position. Licensing software is all our licensing software of all our different platforms that we utilize. We have Microsoft Office, and there's all different platforms and licenses that are maintained here by this department. And then we also have a computer networking maintenance, was our third-party vendor to work with us to help us through any of our issues. And that's pretty much what is occurring in this budget. Page 45 is the fire department budget. I don't see Fire Chief Shea here, but this is pretty much the the main thing here that was a little bit different than last year is there was an additional increase to the stipend. The first year we went with a 1,250 stipend for the members, and this year it was increasing it slightly to 1,500, as there was once some of the taxes had come out, it was close to being under what they had been receiving with the tax credit. So trying to make that a slightly improvement, and for the men and women that do a very good job for us in our fire department. The chief also has pretty much the same number for training. Service contracts are HVAC vendors, as well as some of our fire vendors that provide extinguishers and whatnot. Pretty much when you go through this budget, there is a little bit of an increase in equipment rental and repair, and that is just the nature of some of the fire apparatus getting older, and some of his equipment getting older, and needing to be repaired. Otherwise, it's coming in pretty much most numbers are coming in flat or slightly flat. So the increase really is coming from that increase in the stipend from 1,250 to 1,500. The page 47 is the fire marshal budget. The fire marshal budget requested no increase at this time, so everything has remained the same. That's usually there's the fire marshal himself and about usually 3 assistants that work under his direction.
Yes.
The, under contractual services, the conferences, meeting and dues line,
Yes.
could Tom just talk about that a little bit?
Line item 32,000?
Yes, please.
Sure.
Well, contract that would be all conferences, meetings, and dues for all the members in the
Okay, okay, thanks.
in the fire marshal's office. I think what happened is, I think some of these guys are employed by other employers, and they do their best to, I think, get their training elsewhere. But in some of these instances, when it's strictly fire marshal components, it's really the required kind of to use us. So going forward to page 49, this is the dispatch contract as well as our contract for Tyco for alarm paneling. I think it was like a 3% increase for the dispatch, and then slight increase for potential utilization of some site work there. But the Tyco stuff generally remains flat, except for if other components were to get completed, we were to add a few things if we could. But that's pretty much the increase there is related to the contractual obligation with Middletown. Page 51 is our police department budget. The lieutenant here is in the audience if there is any questions. This has the staff that he currently has, I think, plus one potential hire for the next year that did not get hired this year. So keeping pretty much everything the same with in there with this year potential increases with contractual. There were, as in 16, we did see some savings because people were retired and there were no replacements at that time, or slowed replacements due to the various requirements and testing and learning and training. But you did see some increase in your overtime, which is count 1302, where it went from 107,015 to 124,016. So, there's you see some savings in some, and some ups and some downs in other. I believe that we've left the lieutenant has requested that overtime go up slightly with just the continual activity that we have here in the town, and the need for coveraging and not only having one person on at a time. So he's requesting that that overtime numbers stay in there and stay solid. Police private duty has a revenue offset in the general fund, and so that's an estimated number there. The service contracts that varies based on the amount of items that break at the senior in the Buck Foreman building, and how those repairs are going down. Sometimes you're at that 14,000. Other times you have a good year and you're not. So it's really dependent upon the wear and tear. So we try to leave that constant. Software is just the software. There's a various that software charges depending on the way the vendor upgrades and allows upgrades. Hopefully it will stay constant. If they do need to change vendors, then that would likely be increased in the future. But hopefully right now they'll be able to stick with the vendors they have and work through that. The cruiser support is as payments we make through CROG, and it's for the various items within our vehicles for the modem and the interconnectivity for the department. Do you have anything to say, Lieutenant? Ed? Any update or?
It's also for that line item, it also comes out. Every cruiser is equipped with a computer system, and there's a charge for each computer. That's needed right now. It's $1,000 a car.
Is that what the line item 31008 licensing and software? Is that why we went from 30 in 15, 16, 3,400 to 80? What was the major jump from the 3,400 to the 83? From 2015 it was about 8,300, and then it jumped to, it was 3,400 in 15, 16 actual, and then we went to 83. I should say back to 83 because you were 83 in 14, 15. What's the reasoning for that large increase? What did we pick up? Or
So-
what didn't we have? No, I know. You were talking about... No, I know. But I'm back.
I can answer that for you, Ben.
There you go.
So, so we have as a Crime Star Software is the name of our vendor. They've been very generous and have not required updates in a while. They did require an update in that year, and therefore we had to pay the total amount of the $8,000 for the upgrade, and that had been something been coming for a little while. Then the police has been so active in utilizing the pictures in that format that's required. David and Kevin in the IT department worked with Crime Star, and they've migrated that over to it's like a enterprise system to help run that, which more or less is just saying you have more memory and data. So the first year they got you with the update on the contract, then the 4,000 they went with an additional fee. So it's a questionable whether it's somewhere between 8,000 and 4,000 is what's going to be owed. Kinda is all about how Crime Star bills, and then if somehow Crime Star is a current vendor with us, they do work with in the state. If there is this CGIS project that does move forward and gets enhanced, they may or may not work with CGIS, and then at that point, then the lieutenant and the IT department would have to work and try to obtain a different vendor. But Crime Star's been a long time partner here with the police department and has provided them strong service. So that's kind of that's the long story of what the licensing is.
Yeah, there was many years where they only charged us for one license, for one system in our office. And kind of with the updates that, we've been building the system a little too long, and they had to go up on the prices.
But it's still safe to say we just somewhere between 4 and 8 next year, and we're budgeting just to be safe. All right. Okay. Got my answer. Thank you.
Yep.
I have a question. How many typical traffic stops do we do in a year? Like either on the highway, speeding, and that kind of stuff?
Off the top of my head, I wouldn't have that, get it for you.
I'm just curious, I'm just curious, is it dozens, hundreds, thousands,
We do
millions?
We do 5,000 roughly calls for service a year.
Got it.
So, we're probably looking at, maybe 1,000.
Yep, more curious. And then another question, might be Tom, might be able to answer. And I'm just curious myself, if someone gets a ticket speeding on the road, where do the funds for that ticket go? Does the town keep all of it? State gets everything, huh?
It used to be, I don't know if the town now is getting, with moving violations, there used to be, that the town got a percentage, like a 10%. So I don't know if they, that's the way that program, years ago, it used to be a, the town would get kicked back for only moving violations.
Right. I'm just curious.
I'm not sure if that's still in effect.
It's like a minuscule amount of money.
But it really, okay, but it all goes to the state.
Yeah, we get a minuscule amount of money.
Got it, okay. So
Very
I was asking. Oh,
Well, I'm thinking of it, and Rick is here too. Rick did look up the question that you had on, traffic lights, the traffic lights on Main Street. And we did request that the state take over, particularly that light near Brownstone School. They did respond, they said no, and they said, we will charge you X number of dollars, which, do you remember the number, Rick? But it was 6 figures? Yeah, 5 figures. And 2020 is probably the next time they would get to it, is what they told us. So, not a lot of hope there for money, but I did want to get back to you that that light is getting old, and we have to repair it since we own it, and the state does not want to own it. But they will assist us in getting a new one on or about 2020. Anything you want to add to that, Rick?
It is.
It's old.
Not getting.
It is.
Tom, I have a question too.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just on 13002, the overtime, and I assume that's negotiation affects overtime probably to some extent, right? In other words, the ground rules for overtime, et cetera. And the reimbursement, I'm just thinking about this, trying to get a handle on it. Reimbursement, in some cases, clearly there'd be some reimbursement. In other cases, there's not, obviously, if it's something that is strictly town business. How does that, how does that factor in? Is that?
So the line 13002 is strictly overtime.
Right.
That has there's no reimbursements involved in that at all.
So there wouldn't be any reimbursement at all, even if you had a contractor who,
No, that's 14014
Okay.
police private duty.
okay. And how does that, and then lastly, how does that actually, if it does, factor into our pension plan? Is any
Police
part
private
of,
duty does not factor in,
it is not factored in? Okay.
but overtime does.
But
Straight overtime does factor
straight overtime does,
to the police department.
isn't factored, yeah.
Patrol overtime does, outside overtime does not. Outside overtime is CLMB, Heckles and McCoy, whoever.
Mhm.
Yeah, so if there's like a crime of some sort, then that would be overtime, that counts in the pension. But the police private duty does not.
Yes, Kitch?
Okay,
Is Fred finished?
Fred, are you finished?
all set, yeah.
Okay, yes,
Okay.
Kitch, you're next.
Thank you. So to go back to the overtime line, is that overtime to fill shifts that would otherwise not be filled?
Correct. That plus,
Ron, could you come up so that Kitch could hear you a little better?
I actually can hear Ron very well.
Oh, she hears you very well.
yes, that's filled for shifts right now where officers are working alone, plus next year, I just was in class for the last week and a half for what they call research training. Every 3 years, officers have to go back to school to be recertified. I have 4 officers that are due for recert next year budget, which their shifts have to be filled when those officers are in school. So that money will also be put toward that. I also have an officer, I lost my reconstruction officer when he retired. I have
Okay.
an officer right now that's in school to become a reconstructionist. It's a long, tedious classes, and when he's in school, I have to fill his shifts. So that's where that money goes.
All right. The recertification classes that will need to be taken next year, how long are they in duration
2 weeks, well, roughly a week and a half.
for each of those 4 officers?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions?
Page 53 is emergency management. This budget is same budget as it was last year. There is a grant that we get for a portion of this budget. There had been a little bit of changeover in the management team. Fire Chief Shea is now the emergency management director, so confident that that will continue to be utilized as it should be.
Tom, on that page, what are these cell phones opposed to the other cell phones? I think were like 8,000. You had them in another category.
Fire Chief Shea and Susan Bransfield.
Just 2?
Yes.
Thank you.
Page 55. This is the building department. This is made up of Lincoln White, the building official, and a part of the one full administrative assistant that's split between building and planning.
Lincoln is also our blight official, and I had asked him to bring some updates on blight to you, which Kitch will put the handout in your mailbox.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But there is a handout that you brought. I don't know if you want to go over that now, Tom?
Fine.
Do you need one, Mike? Kathy, could you give me one for Michael, please? Yeah.
Good evening.
Hello.
I'm not sure you want me to go through line by line item on this. I can just,
Yeah,
Give
just
you-
highlights, I think.
yeah. We've reduced some blight here in town. I have it laid out by alphabetical order by street. We have just Kitch, for your information, we have a street number, the property address, nature of the violations, such as abandoned or unsafe structure, blight, that sort of thing, and then it goes on to some different dates when the office received it, and different dates throughout the process of notification, deadlines, etc., and then a status at the end. We've made some progress throughout town. The fire truck is generally gone from Main Street. Elsewhere, parts unknown. And as we go through the blight process, really a lot of the foreclosures tend to be our focus downtown here, in the village area, the hills of East Main Street, and out and about also. We did take a pretty major first step this past year where we budgeted for and actually boarded up and secured a property that had been abandoned and blighted for quite some time out on Durham Road. We also took another property owner to court in order to get his blighted property of very many years out on Culver Lane straightened out. He's actually refurbished that property and continues to do that. Our processes have gotten much clearer for this sort of action over the past year through the action itself. You also have in your handout a list of requests for voluntary compliance. This is a form letter that we send out just as an olive branch of, there appears to be some issues at your house, and we have a list of the different departments, which include the zoning, blight, health department, building department, and we check these off and have the people get back to us just to start the conversation in order to address any verbal complaints that we'll get that the folks don't want to be known that their neighbor is complaining about them, etc. And a lot of those get resolved fairly easily and readily just by a phone call and a conversation. And then a lot of the RVCs or blighted properties are taken care of because they got bought and are getting renovated by the new owners. It's been a pretty successful year and all that. And throughout the contact with most of the folks that I deal with, 50% of them say, well, what are you going to do about Main Street and all the parking down there? That's the blighted part of town. What are you picking on me for? So Deanna Rhodes was here in 13, and there had been some action taken on trying to address the multiple car parking along the curb line between Co Avenue and Arvid, Russell Avenue and Co Avenue. So I found a file. I talked to Susan, talked to the state of Connecticut, and there's some notice of violations had gone out to a number of properties, actually, all the way up almost through to Arvid Road from the state of Connecticut, notifying the property owners that they were illegally parking in the state right-of-way without authorization or permitting. I talked with the gentleman at the state who put those letters together. They are still viable action. They're in place. And my thoughts around the whole streetscape, I have the nice 8x10 colored glossies here that were put together back in the day of some conceptual parking schemes which actually included a lot of right-of-way parking. That's not where I think we should approach this at all. I think, and I've talked to a couple of the property owners about relocating their parking towards the rear or the sides of the structures. It's real unsafe for people to try to get out anywhere along there when there's cars parked right out into the road. I think the first step would be to ask the state for some no parking in right-of-way signs just along that area, every couple of 100 feet, every 100 feet. And then Ronnie will have the sign there to just point to and say, no parking here, you gotta move it. A lot of the action I get positive movement from is just having a conversation with people. I've talked to 3 different property owners, and they're willing to look at, talk to, and try to do something about the parking on their properties. So I think it's a simple, easy step to take without expending funds for curbing, filling old rutted areas, or providing parking on private property. I think if we start with just a simple no parking in state right-of-way, the state is willing to support any calls, complaints to their office of backing and supporting the town. They're not willing to expend any time, energy, or money really much beyond that because of the action they did take went nowhere, and they felt they wasted their efforts. But their new guy on block, they're talking to me. And then from really that point, once cars start moving off, our doors are open for assisting the property owners on how to manage relocating the parking as far as pulling sod out, putting it up front where the parking is now, maybe some gravel in. Rick's got compost available for anybody requesting it in order to fill in areas that need to be grassed over out in front. But we need to start with the Board of Selectmen saying, yeah, let's move forward with some sort of action here. Let's have Ron support pulling the cars out of that right away and really talk to the folks with no real timeline, just a little action. Got the fire truck out of there. We're working on it.
Well, I think that was working with the property owner
Yeah.
and coming up with some solutions, which has been helpful.
Lincoln, the only thing I'd
Ben?
And I'm one of the people Lincoln has talked to, and I'm in support of moving the vehicles to the rear, and I think in many cases you can. I can think of some that they can't. So I think before we start putting up signs and saying, don't park here, we should also know where they need to go. They have permitted residents. I'm assuming they pay their taxes. They need a place to park. So I think a few of them we, have to investigate, and I love the fact, I'm one of the ones you've actually talked to, and it's worked well. I plan on doing it to one of them, and I hope everybody else, but I can think of a few that just can't. So I think it's gonna take more than just putting up a sign and,
It's
say-
just a start.
Right, so I just want to make sure everybody's fully aware that
Yeah.
I think there are a few that just physically can't, and
Well, there's one that can't, actually, that's next to you
he can't, and then
over
further
there.
down
And
next.
you
next
were
to the
gonna, lend him parking, if I remember.
I'm gonna try.
You promised
I'm
you
gonna
would
try,
do
but
that.
if you've seen the amount of vehicles, I'm gonna try.
I don't think we're gonna try to create miracles.
Okay, yeah,
here. Some of them that have that classic U-shape pull-out, pull-in, that may continue to work for the town. It's the lined-up cars of
Yep.
10 and 15 and
Right.
6 and 8 that are dangerous. And I don't have any authority to touch it. I'm the blight guy and I'm the building guy. But I'm the one who fields all these calls, so I wanted to just sort of
And-
check into it.
And I like your approach. I think it's the right approach. I don't think we want to alienate anybody. I think this is gonna be a many-part problem. It's not gonna be just snap
Yeah.
fingers. I think everybody, even the people using it, probably would like to have a better situation. But I think the reality is it's just gonna take a little while to get there, and hopefully we can all get there.
We won't put a sign in front of your.
One quick one, Lincoln. Going forward, when there's a conversion to, let's say, House A has a conversion and the developer wants to put in 4 apartments. Currently, is there any linkage between the parking availability now and so that in the future when someone comes in and there's limited parking, they can't have 4 or 8 vehicles in an area that just won't support it.
Yeah, that scenario would be fully regulated. These never were regulated. These are all outside the regulation. They
Right.
just sort of happened over time. I don't believe 4.
Currently going forward, that'd be, okay.
Yeah.
Ashley would know that.
Yeah, if you can't put the parking in, the dumpster in the rear and hidden, you don't get the conversion.
Okay.
essentially, in the nutshell.
Yeah, that's all regulated.
Kitch, did you have anything?
I didn't hear after if you can't put the parking in the rear, then what happens?
In the
Don't-
side. We're gonna do our best, I think. Even if-
Okay, all
even
right. It sounds like a good approach. I think there are some areas of Main Street that actually do look a little bit better. Excuse me. So I think there are some people that are trying to comply
Yep.
to a different standard, a new and better standard. But any efforts that can be made along that line would be much appreciated.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else from the board? Shirley, did you want to ask a question?
The semicircular driveways in front of the old houses.
There's a question about the semicircles that are in front of some of the older homes on Main Street.
I think those are part of the historic nature of those homes, and we're not trying to make the areas that are unsafe, safe. That's my,
Alright.
really, is to make those areas safe.
It's always been there.
Yeah,
Some are permitted, I know, more
Yeah.
recently. They are regulated or permitted. Some have been there for a long time, and as
Yeah.
Lincoln said, his approach is trying to make things look better,
Yeah.
improved.
And I think another thing to point out, the circular ones are what I would like to see is they could stay, but those should be in a perfect world, if you could park everything in the rear, that would be for the guests.
Drop off.
Exactly, and then like you said, safer in and out, it's not an obstacle sitting there overnight, but if you ever have, people over that, and they do look nice, the rainbows, so.
And incidentally, the parking sign idea is, in my mind, a temporary parking sign setup. Once we get some movement and some, the parking out of those areas, we can actually remove those signs out as an unnecessary item. But just something that gives the state, puts the mask that the state is involved with the care of, the concern for safety along that street. We do have the letters from the state that they will continue to support the town's action in stepping forward with. And I don't plan on doing, I wouldn't want to see a sign every 50 feet, one every couple of 100 feet.
Any thoughts on that from the selectmen?
I mean, personally, I like your approach, meeting each individual, and I think that's what it's gonna take. I think, we can't be a bull in a china shop, we can't start demanding, but we can, and I'll use myself and you as a perfect example. You can start having dialogue and try to get, even if it's a couple of years, it's a big, big difference. And I think then you'll see, people will see a big change and wanna get behind it, but in some cases, it's gonna take creativity between neighbors and the town. There may be some costs involved between filing easements and other things to obtain our goal. If our goal is, as a town, to clean this up, and I personally, that's what I'd like to see, but there may be things for a couple of those homes that just can't do it, that we're gonna have to, that we shouldn't be putting a burden on them to get them to help, to get them to comply, so.
And
that's
maybe one of
that's my
those
take.
historic type horseshoe drives would work for those scenarios.
Yeah, I guess,
Something that looks good, that works, or behind the sidewalk, just a little further out of the right of way.
I think what Lincoln is also saying is for any enforcement or any progress, he needs to have either a rule by us or some type of a measure in which to enforce. And as he's done with all of these cases that are on your sheet, it's not immediate, but there has to be progress made. And what he's following is the blight ordinance in this case. And he knows in working with the owners of the state right away, i.e. the state, they're going to require that there be some type of a statement by themselves, which what he's saying there is. But in order to enforce, he has to have something. I don't expect us to make a blanket decision tonight, but I thought it would be helpful to talk about it because he's spending a lot of effort in trying to make the whole town look better and I think safer. Appreciate it.
I think one of the most important things here is, obviously, if we are going down that road, this board's gonna need to be informed which ones, when were they permitted to be switched over? Where is their permitted parking? Can their parking be moved? We can't, I don't believe that, as a board, just blanket, in a perfect world, yeah, we all want the parking, but the reality is, people are being taxed on multifamilies that were permitted to be converted, and the parking was allowed in the front. There's probably a lot of rights, I'm assuming here, that are protected because we essentially allowed this, and now we are trying to change it, and we have to then work with these people, because it's not an overnight fix.
Part of the review of the file will include what they do have. But we do have the state saying you don't have authorization for all the properties that I have my microscope on. They do not have a permit to park out in the state right of way. So we'll just take it from there. Yeah, no big sticks, little twigs, They can hurt more, actually. Get their attention.
Good luck, Lincoln.
To be
Thank you.
continued.
Yeah.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Lincoln.
Thanks.
Any other questions on that? Kitch, did you have anything else?
Yeah, I'm set, thanks.
Okay, then we'll move on with Mr. Robinson. Yeah.
Page 73.
That would help.
Page 73, planning. And Ashley Majorowski is here as well tonight, if there's any questions. Tom?
So the planning department, some of this was, I think I believe this is probably your idea, Susan, but there's a little bit of a restructuring here in this department as well as the economic development and the overall globalization of running the planning department. So we have Ashley's position is in this budget, and as well as a part-time of a clerk is in this budget, and a part-time employee that would be kind of a part-time land use and economic development coordinator. So with all that, all those changes, the increased budget was only 1.12% on this budget, and you'll see the decreasing in some of the other budgets.
So did you say there's gonna be a new position created? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Instead of the consultant, which is on page 85, I believe, there was a grants consultant for 24,000. It's moved to the planning department at still a part-time basis at 26,000.
All right, so,
So page 75. 75 is our zoning enforcement. That pretty much has no change other than payroll. The zoning commission change next has no change.
I can't hear Tom.
Tom?
Page 77, zoning, planning and zoning commission has no change. Page 79 is the zoning board of appeals, that has no change. Page 44 is, 81 of 0144, my continued error, is 0% increase, no change. Page 83, which is 01045, is the Conservation Commission, there's no change. And then you'll see in page 85, this is kind of correlating to the planning department change. You'll see a decrease in 86% of that budget. It's pretty much just a rotation of that money from grants consultant into part-time payroll.
is the job description or the job changing?
There is a job, I think, that's in existence on the payroll. There was an amendment right to the payroll action.
Part of our
Form already.
transition from when Deanna was there, when she left, there was, the economic development consultant assisted in a temporary basis until, the land use administrator was hired in October. And that has continued. Instead of a consultant, the person is there more, physically there, 3 days a week as a part-time position. And it's been very helpful, particularly since we've had and are continuing, and we're looking forward to quite a bit of economic development work starting in the new fiscal year. And as far as customer service is concerned, I think it's an enhancement in the office to have people there to assist, particularly when people come in with questions on either redevelopment or development, particularly in the economic development area. So it would be a position that would be noticed and advertised, should there be an agreement that we proceed in that way. That office, as you know, those who use it, it involves a lot of personal attention and a fair amount of time at the table, at the counter. And it's been our emphasis on customer service to have more people in the office assisting. And Lincoln has taken more of a lead role in trying to coordinate some of the activities, which we know are going to be great, and we anticipate next year quite a bit of development. And so, in terms of other staff, as the redevelopment of some of our properties becomes apparent, we may need to utilize some of the fees that will come in with those projects to assist the staff that are more of permanent nature. For example, building official will probably need to have more attention in that area. Engineering, there'll be more need in that area. Perhaps in the area of planning, to assist with the review of applications. There's a pending $30 million project that we anticipate will be coming in an application basis, and that will involve quite a bit of staff time as well as utilization of the fees that come in helping to pay for those activities.
Is there any, you talked about noticing the jobs, is there any other costs associated other than the salary changeover? In other words, you said it was part-time, so I'm assuming there's no other, we're going from a consultant to a position. What other liabilities come along with this
Pretty much FICA and Medicare.
Excuse me?
FICA and Medicare.
On a part-time position?
But there's no health benefits or anything like that.
No, there's no vacation, no sick, and no health care benefits.
Well, sick it might be sick would be based on the rule of sick pay there, maybe, because if you
Oh,
are
for
talking
sick,
to the
excuse me,
public.
there is no vacation though.
Right.
Tom? I'm sorry, Kitch, I didn't hear you.
It's all right. I just felt like myself.
Ah, okay, I hear you.
And then page 87, which is another similar one as the Capital Commission, that has this $500 for a board clerk. I think mostly the capital guys handle that mostly, but there's money there if they ever request the clerk. Page 89 is the Health Department, which this is pretty much Chatham Health. Chatham Health, we pay a per capita rate. The per capita rate for this year is a 101,150. Page 91, that's defunct. Page 93 is social services. There's an increase in this budget of 11%. And the majority of that is related to what's called 88001, which is program services. That was a request for the senior program, CRT, who administers our kind of like a Meals on Wheels and senior delivery program, requested funds to continue operation or to operate here in Portland. And these were funds that would need to go to CRT so that they would run the I guess it's the Meals on Wheels program, or the meals program for the seniors here in town.
Right. Correct.
So other than that, there's really no change to the budget. Page 95, that's our senior center budget. That's made up of the director and also a half-time clerk that works with Park and Rec, and then a 10-hour position that kind of helps make sure that things don't disappear and phones get answered. We have really no other changes in there. That was just probably corrections to the part-time position, as that had gone away a little bit in the past and has resurrected itself as there was a change in personnel. Page 97 is the municipal agents for the elderly. There is a grant that provides a portion of monies for this in the general fund, and this is also related to the senior center. So the senior center offers various rides to participants, and this pays our drivers and the gas and diesel for the vehicles. There is no change to this budget in the current year. Page 101, That's our employee benefits page. The main components here, we have gone out to bid on medical and dental benefits. There has it appears that we are making a change. The savings that or the lack thereof additional increase that we will see is reflected within this budget already. The current carrier had come up with about a 16% increase, and it's not without merit. Claims were rough this year. There was quite a few very, very ill people, and that does happen. And we try to help as much as we can with wellness programs and things of that nature. But the reality of life takes its course. But we did test the markets and felt that the amount of money was too big not to pass up between a 9% or about an 8 to 9% increase and the 16.5% increase. So that we've reflected that in our medical plan. We're sick pay. I have a lesser number than last year by just a little bit. That's kind of a roll of the dice based on who gets paid out. We had some retirements, so I'm kind of hoping that some of those will be we'll see a benefit there. But those are all just based on contractual obligations. The pension plan is made up of our DB plan contribution, and then there's allocations to other funds. But the majority of that cost is our DB plan, and then also our DC plan, which is a 6% contribution. The police contribution is for the police department. There was recommendation by our actuary to go with a little bit of a higher number here. We have stayed with the 30-year accrual based on the need for staying within the budgeted mill rate area. That could be an area where if there is some funds available at the end of the year, it probably would be worthwhile to make a little bit of an additional contribution in May and June, and I'll discuss that with Susan when we have the time, when that part of the year gets here, and we'll have to see if we do make some additional contribution. We do have some of the numbers, in our planning files that would tell us where the differences lie, and that's kind of because the plan was based on a 30-year amortization period, and some of the people have an ability to retire in a 20-year period. So with that, the funds are growing and they are sufficient, but there are some potential heavy recipients coming out in the next 3 to 5 years as well. So that could have we're always just trying to make sure that we have enough funds in the flow to make sure that's running smoothly. Volunteer pension plan, same scenario. That's a very low funded plan. We do have a pension portfolio now, which is a nice addition. We have a nice display of Vanguard funds that we do make a portion of our contribution to that and allocate amongst that. So we are seeing some positive effect of that, and hopefully we can continue to grow the funds. But there still is a good pay-as-you-go portion of that as well. And we know that there's not a large amount of assets, so we need to keep as much of it current as we can, but then investing as much, a reasonable allocation. And then they have the workers' comp amount, which gets allocated to the workers' comp fund that pays our workers' comp premiums. Page 103 is our risk management. Based on our agreement With Kerma, there was a 3% increase, so therefore it's a 3% increase. Page 105 is our debt service. This would have in it the multi-year lease that we're anticipating, with an estimated amortization schedule in there for one payment. It also has a potential bond issue in there, and an interest payment on that of $95,000. That is why you're seeing an increase there in that of $18,000. Plus, it was going down, and last year it had gone down, and that was why we were able to put some monies into capital last year, fiscal year 17. Page 107 is just our interfund transfers. They pretty much show in correlation to what you're seeing there in the other funds. The ones that are different are the transfer other that has the $50,000 going to the water fund, 125 going into the school construction deficit, and 10,000 going into a fund that is set up for blight and demolition. It's pretty much that. You see the decrease there in overall, and it seems like pretty much the effect of not putting much into capital through taxation, but putting more in through a lease program. Page 109 is contingency. There's no change there. We touched in some of the other funds. We will go to page 119 and 120. This is our animal control fund. We have our animal control officer, which is the main salary item here, with benefits and their benefits, and we do also have a part-timer that makes roughly in the 9,000 range. A couple of them probably that do that and work on nights and on the weekends. I mean, when to go in and help with the dogs. Pretty much this budget remains quite normal and flat. We did go up, I believe, on advertising and publications, because Middletown Press used to do that for free. They no longer put in the publications for free, so we have to pay that publication, and so there's a little bump there. Otherwise, pretty much everything else is consistent. Page 124 is our youth service program. We do have some Department of Labor grants that we hope to have workforce. It's a workforce for the younger children, jobs, employment monies. We also have the Youth Service Bureau grant and the Youth Service Enhancement grant. Hopefully, we'll say together that's the state education, and then we do receive money from the DSS through our resource center fees, which is brought in by our CRC consultant. The payroll is made up of Mary Ponce, the director's salary, and various temporary payroll that helps her run and administer the program and oversee the children. There's also some items in there for commodities and for some consultants. More or less that budget remains flat. $132 and $133 is our Parks and Rec budget. We did go a little bit more aggressive on the summer program fees than we had in the past, estimating hopefully an extra $20,000 in that. Looks like we had 80 one year and 112 another. So we're hoping that we're staying near the 100. Could be a little bit overzealous, but hopefully not. Sean will do a good job trying to watch that and go from there. But mostly the other numbers are looking relatively in line. We did put the property rental fees in there in case, so we can try to break out the actual rental of some of the properties that we have now. The we have the payroll is Sean's salary, the half clerk of Carol Ravicki, and then various payroll for participants, teen recreation they call it, but it's for the people that are participating to oversee programs while and run the programs while Sean does the overseeing of everything that goes on there. They have the benefits for those people that are that receive benefits, Carol and Sean. We have the gas utilities. We did go up a little bit on electricity, anticipating a need there to go up. Similar with water and sewer, with additional utilization by the park and the toilets and the bathrooms. And then he has all his programmatic activity, and assuming well, that's kind of what's going on with his programs.
Could you elaborate on the CRC and the ECC consulting?
Yeah, I mean, there's two different consultants. There's a CRC, which is what does he do? What's his specialty?
He's a marriage and family therapist.
Sorry. He's a marriage and family therapist, and so he helps with that. And then some of the items, when he can, they bill, and he bills, and then we get that money back through the DSS. Other times, that's part of our program to help people. And then the other is an ECC coordinator that used to be funded by a portion of a grant, and then that grant kind of went away. The services are still very valuable. I believe it's about $1,000 or $1,500 that we pay for that consultant.
What do you equate for the reasoning in 14, 15, and 15, 16, about 8,000 an hour, knocking out 21,000? What do you put that large increase? What do you equate that to?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I didn't understand the question.
On line 88039,
Yes.
Okay.
if you look across, 8,600, 7,500, 21,000.
Yeah.
What do we equate the jump from approximately 8,000 to 21?
Well, those two are actuals. So we budget them 21,000 in, and then it's all based on how many families there are available to help, how much time he has to help. I know in there,
How many hours if he is in his office?
Right.
How many hours that are billed?
that this
And
into.
that time number?
Yeah.
No, I get that. What I'm trying to figure out is...
I know there was an individual. I know at one point, like there was an illness in his family in one of the years, or one or two of the years, and he wasn't here as much.
Right,
So-
I don't have further back years, I only have these two. I can, 14, 15, 8,600.
That's what I'm
15,
telling you.
16.
In 14 and 15, there was an illness, so he was here less.
Okay.
So he
an
has
illness in his family.
in his family.
Okay.
He
I
was
thought,
here less.
Yeah.
And it depends on the need of the town.
okay. So those were low.
Correct.
Okay, because I don't have, I don't have further back years to see if,
It's the actual billing of his hours
Right.
okay.
that he is in his office.
Yeah.
That's what you're seeing. So we run high just in case. If we have more families that all of a sudden are coming, a beat.
Okay.
And one of the things that Tom had mentioned, funds come in if he bills DSS, that's the custody program, but we also bill the insurances and get reimbursed through insurances.
Okay. On that 21, that's the revised budget, is that the actual or no? For,
That's the actual budget, but that's not an actual expenditure, no.
do you know that number? I'm just curious.
Well, that's at this point in
That
time.
number we're not gonna know until.
Till the end.
we're
No,
budgeting.
but he has a running tally of where we're at usually.
Right. I believe we're at about 4,000 to 5,000.
So I have budgeted, let's see, this is, I ran this the last time we met. So it's March 21st, so a little bit old. We were about 7,000 spent and about 15,000 encumbered.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, I'll go over capital, give my 2 cents, and then we can let Mr. Aguilotti speak. So on page 135, so it shows in the next few pages, 136 through 141, it shows the majority of the capital needs. They have been submitted. I provided everything that was submitted that I had. I provided to the Capital Commission so that they would be able to see the submittals. I go through and input information in, and utilizing my judgment, relocate things to where I feel they can fit in, and with Susan's input about what she wants to fund in her budget. So that's what we do on those next pages. But so the monies that actually hit the cash money, we have $10,000 for airline trail consultants, our $40,000 for the revaluation continuation. That's a level of funding that we do. $20,000 for townwide computers, $15,000 for SCBA bottle replacements, and Board of Ed technology of $50,000. We anticipate low SIP at 116,286 to come out sometime in March of next year. In that, we have isolated park and recs for 36,286, masonry improvements of 50, and parking lots improvement of 30. We currently have estimated a 1.602 lease, and in this we have a fire apparatus expedition and an F-350 for the fire department of roughly 125,000 that will be equipped. Grounds F-350 dump truck 63,000 equipped. A grounds mid-size utility tractor of $47,000 equipped. I think that you'll hear probably from long-term that I was supposed to include an $18,000 attachment or something that I did not. That's your call whether you want to add that in or not. Police equipped SUVs with laptops, 154,000. I think we're anticipating that was 4 there. A fingerprint machine with a 5-year maintenance agreement, 6 in total, of $35,000. Police ACO radio equipment. This is for portable and in vehicle based upon. This is the change with relation to dispatch, $175,000. DPW building maintenance town garage generator, we have a $60,000. A DPW highway street sweeper, $250,000. DPW highway aerial lift truck of $85,000. DPW highway large dump truck with plows, $218,000. DPW highway rubberized backhoes, $160,000. DPW highway paver of $100,000. DPW highway wood chipper, I think that's also with landfill, $45,000. DPW resource recovery platform scale of $55,000. A townwide large printer scanner which goes in the town clerk's office for $10,250, and then closing costs and financial advisory costs of $20,000. There are some we're working with the department heads to try to get some tighter numbers on that. There may be some pluses and minuses on these. I believe Rick is working on some of these and will be able to provide us if there's a need to go up or down on some of these items.
You mentioned on Parks and Recs, you said airline trail consultant. It's written improvement. Is it improvements or is it consultant?
Well, it's for the airline true improvement, that's the guy that it's the engineer out of Glastonbury that's working with that program.
My question is the 10,000 for improvements to the trail, or is the 10,000 for a consultant? Because it's written.
Consultant.
It's written
on
improvements.
the topic of airline trail improvements. Ben.
Yeah.
So it's for that reason, but you are correct that it is for a consultant as opposed to actually
Well, I mean,
a shovel.
when you go, yeah, I mean, when you go with the grant, it'll get capitalized in with the grant. So so even though it's a consultant and engineer, it's part of the improvement. But it does represent an engineering service.
No, I'm just trying to get a handle on what we got here. Thank you.
Yep.
And then on the DPW resource recovery, the platform scale, is that the scale at the dump?
Yes.
Transfer station, I apologize. I've lived here long enough when it was a dump. Could you?
Scale was installed in 1991, and it's been failing for a number of years, particularly in the summer where it shifts enough to stick and not record properly. That has to be certified by the state every year. This year, it's a no. So we have a service that is going to be making some minor repairs to it because so hopefully we can replace it. It doesn't owe us anything. It's 1991. Done its job.
Thank you.
Do you want to have Michael come up?
What's that?
Do you want Mike Aguilati to come up?
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll give you 30 seconds, Mike.
Thank you, sir.
We did hand these out last time, but I appreciate you bringing an extra copy. I brought mine with me.
Nice, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We started numerous meetings this year on a lot of items that were immediate needs that we saw in August. So a lot of decisions were easy to make. Tom gave you a rundown of stuff that was proposed in your current budget. The capital lease items are pretty much all needed. Some of the stuff doesn't work, or it's broken down. Like the fingerprint machine, we're the last one in the state of Connecticut that has this one. It's no longer usable. So we did our due diligence on all these items. Tom mentioned there's one item that was left out. It's for the grounds maintenance, to purchase a 16-foot tow-behind mower for $18,000. That was supposed to be in conjunction with the mid-size utility tractor. It's going to replace 3 items. Carl wants to sell the Groundsmaster, the Kubota, and the John Deere tractor and replace it with the mid-size utility tractor and the tow-behind mower. So if we could add that to the capital lease proceeds of $18,000, I don't think it's going to make a big difference in the numbers. And also will alleviate some future expenditures through his department, because it seems like he's getting caught up, as is the police department. And so in the future, we can put our focus on other departments that are now falling behind after looking at the 5-year plan. A couple other things, I got a few questions to ask. The Board of Education, we got the windows at the Brownstone Intermediate School. They got one more phase. It's $100,000. I believe it's the Guido Flower Shop side. What do you want to do with that? You didn't put anything in this year. He has some money left over in a current line item for the windows to be done on the court side, but he needs the extra money to finish his project so we can move on. That's what he needs is $100,000. And also, the track at the high school. One time it was $80,000 to replace the high school track. Now we're up to $150,000. Are we going to continue to put this off, or are we going to find out what is needed to do this before it gets more expensive? Someone needs to come up with an answer so we have an idea. Is this going to be more than $150,000 or less, or do we keep putting it off? And are we going to pay full dollar to have this repaired? Because underneath it, correct me if I'm wrong, there's pavement. I believe there's pavement underneath, and I believe the last time we were there, they said it was cracked. So we got to get an answer on what we're going to do with the track before it becomes more costly. Middlesex Avenue renovations of $60,000. Again, we don't know what the state of Connecticut's gonna do. They say LoSiP funds will be there in March. That's today. If it's not, again, we're gonna be putting off this project. It's dragging on. Sean's done a good job with Carl to get some of the projects done down there, but it's piecemeal. It's LoSiP this year. They got canceled, so we're off another year, and he's hoping to get money the following year. Can we put some kind of money into the taxation side of this budget so we can continue or expedite the project down there so it doesn't drag on for another 5 years? You've been hearing that in August. You heard Shirley speak about it. We're trying to do it in-house best we can, but some of the stuff's got to be done outside. It just takes too long. And if you could think about putting some money on the taxation side to help with this project. Valley View School, Paul's done a great job with the asbestos tile removal up there. They're asking for $20,000. That was not put in the budget. We've been doing this on and off for many years with the asbestos removal. It's been coming through capital the whole time. Same with slate roof repairs. We repaired that whole roof probably 5 or 6 years ago. But again, that needs to be looked at every 5 years, he was telling me the other day. So we put the $15,000 in for that. Any questions? Shoot away. All right, we're going to get to the fun one. The Water and Sewer Department. Do we have a plan? Obviously, you heard the tie and bond report. You heard long-range capital. We put $125,000 for each division this year, but that is not what is needed for the long term. Has the Board of Selectmen discussed or thought about what they're going to do with the Water and Sewer Department and the funding of the repairs needed? I guess we haven't talked about that. You were all at the meeting. Independent study. Lots of money. Are we going to bond? Are we going to address it? Anybody? Sue?
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit last meeting, actually, about the fact that we'll be focusing on that topic more. But to answer your question, I don't think there's been any, certainly any decisions made about that, Michael. But
I can't hear.
at least there's a little discussion going on.
Okay.
Can the speakers please speak up a little bit?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions on my report that you have in your hand? Would you like to take a few minutes and read it?
I'm assuming you've got a second category, park and recreation, field improvements, and then obviously we have the middle six.
Correct.
Those are completely different, correct?
Correct. One of them's through LoSiP funds through the state,
Yep.
if they deem to fund it. And it could be used for, there's a lot of improvements it's used for throughout the Park and Rec complex.
No, and I think it's important, obviously, the new fields won't be completed for, I'm assuming a few years, and we need to at least keep up with what we are.
Well, that was our main concern. You were gonna have a bond of $6 million for other parks, but we didn't address the issues of the current parks we own. So we don't wanna piecemeal this forever, like Brownstone or Nolan Field took almost, Sandy Darner was the coordinator at the time. We just finished up irrigation last year. So, you know, the town does a good job of funding and doing it, but it just takes forever. We want to get this done and then move on to the next one. So we're not piecemealing, you know, boards change, ideas change. It is an eyesore and they want to upgrade it, and I agree with them.
Could I just ask about the windows down at Brownstone? Do you say you need another 100,000 to complete that,
That's correct.
in addition to what you have left over?
Yes. A lot of it's because of, the windows town was telling me has, you know, asbestos or some kind of lead. That's where the cost is. Not so much the windows. I go, that's gonna be $100,000 to fix those. He goes, more of the prep work and the safety part of it.
There's 3 or 4 components. You have the person, environmental consultant, that has to be there because it's a state-run project. project, and then you have the demo provider. The backside demo is reasonable. You turn the corner, you got a little bit hot in the back. So the back's gonna be a little bit more expensive on the demo. We had some type of price on the demo on the side before, and I think it was 40 or something, if I remember, a long time ago. Then you gotta do windows on this side, that side, to turn. So, and then if you do, there's a likelihood you'll hit the vacant before. You have a window vendor, a demo vendor, and it's all different lots.
I mean, we've done a good job down there. The roof's been done, the parking lot, the bathrooms, a lot of the windows, the boiler. I mean, there's done a lot of work down there. Quite expensive, but it's getting there, and he's almost done. So I'd like to finish the project and move on, because there's Board of Ed, if you saw in the long term, they have a lot of issues. A lot of, parking lots at Valley View, issues at Gildersleeve, like I said, the track. They're not little items either, they're quite expensive items.
Any other questions? Any of the department heads want to comment?
For the fire department, the allocation that we made for the SCBA bottle replacement, that's part of the transfer in general government. I'm working with our mutual aid companies who received the $350,000 grant. Update their SCBA requirements of the law for bottles to them. Now they're older bottles, but they certainly may be newer than what I currently have. So at the very least, I think that I can give half of that up. I may be able to give it all this year. I certainly don't want to spend what we don't need to, and I'm gonna try my best to utilize that offer for the city of Middletown to see that what we can do. Now, with that said, we know that that was a grant as well for the town of Portland, and that's how we have our current SCBA. And now it'll be coming due in 3 years, all at once. So I'll be writing hopefully another grant to do the same. So, with today's climate, with the grants and the money that's available, we currently are waiting to hear on a $385,000 grant that I wrote last year. But if you wanna make that 7 today, I think that I'm comfortable with that.
Thank you.
And I can get back to you after I get some more data.
Thank you.
We save money tonight, how's that? Good. He's looking for a thermal imaging camera for $12,000. It wasn't in there. Either you can put it, or you can wait till next year and put it in the LOSIPs, because I think LOSIP funds that item. That's why I didn't say too much about it.
LOSIP is scheduled to be the standard for next year that we typically get, as well as the amount that is not given this year, correct, Tom?
I was totally not listening.
Okay. We'll try it
Right.
again.
The number that you got there is what they anticipated to be.
But it's more than the typical number for next year.
Yes,
why
yeah,
my-
yeah, it's
Yeah,
usually
yeah.
68,000.
Right. Because this spring, we're not anticipating getting what we had allocated.
Correct.
You want to cut it to 7,500 or 7,000, what did you say?
On the grounds maintenance, the purchase of a storage shed, 12,000 under capital there. Are we now utilizing the old,
Yes.
what, can we continue to utilize that old fire station, or is that
That's one
problematic?
of Carl's concerns. If, I don't know what the town's
That's a
gonna,
decision for this board to think about.
yeah, that's the problem. He loses that facility to store stuff, he's gonna need a storage shed.
My vote is take the 12,000 shed off the thing and leave the building.
I don't know what.
Just a little update for the board. While I haven't received an official no thank you, the Historical Society is trending that way. Toward the old Company 2
Right.
firehouse on,
Next to Gildersleeve down.
They don't.
no.
So if he doesn't, he has to store it somewhere, so if that goes,
So that would.
even if they put the trains in there like they've been doing or whatever, he's gotta store stuff, so cannot get stored on the south side of the property due to the
Aquifer.
well. So he's trying to move something to the north side, he needs a storage shed. That was his main concern in the talks, so if it comes to fruition where you have to, maybe you guys find money during the year, I don't know. It's not like a huge number.
If we find money, there's a lot more important things on here, I think, so.
It's a small thing.
So if it does happen, I bet you can move funds around and get that 12,000.
Thank you all for your hard work.
And another thing, I mean, we've been putting in money for sidewalks. I know sidewalks has been a big discussion. And we have any
Continuing.
continuing discussion.
Yes.
We do have that.
I'm glad I
million.
gave my input.
We do have that million, right, Susan, for the sidewalks?
You mean from the November ballot? Yes. But in terms of,
The town repairs on our own buildings, we've been putting money away also. There's a fund, I believe.
but we are working on our plan for how we'll proceed, and we need to talk about that more. And I know our sidewalk subcommittee of this board has worked on it, and I would like to get the citizen committee involved as well soon, so that we can really begin to see where we're headed with sidewalks. But we have talked about it from, as Michael Agalati has pointed out, some towns do a sharing of cost with the private property owners and the town. Other towns pay everything from the town for the.
Richer towns.
Michael
Glastonbury.
commented richer towns, which we don't know who the richer towns are anymore, honestly.
No, not anymore. I've been reading the paper.
Not anymore, it's a whole new ballgame. But the other way that, is something that has been talked about is the town going in where these sidewalks are really, really bad and fixing them. And then making an arrangement with the contiguous landowner as time goes on, now it's your responsibility. We fixed them and they're perfect and hopefully they'll last for a couple decades. But that's all to be determined. Those are just some of the various options. Other options we've talked about are loan programs, so it runs the gauntlet, runs the gamut. But I think we're getting a little closer, particularly since we have some money to do improvements and the prioritization, from doing as much of Main Street as we could, so that that whole area is improved, to looking at some of these side streets such as East Main and Freestone, Waverly, Fairview. Some of those sidewalks, I can tell you, are very bad. They're really not walkable, some of them. So from the identification of these sidewalks, which Rick's house continues to do, to how you want as a board to proceed with the resources that we have and what we anticipate getting. There's a slight chance of a grant we may get, that we are in the running for, but I don't know the timing of that. It was $500,000. We're ranked 2. So that's for our region, but it's a statewide grant. So depending on how much and how that funding proceeds, we may or may not get that. But then we'd be in line for LOTSIP, which is another regional grant. But that's not right away. That's something we're trying to get in the pipeline.
I think, Michael, in another month or so, there'll be some clarity in terms of at least where the thought is from the Selectmen Sidewalk Committee, and not necessarily the board as a whole. That particular topic has been discussed and debated upside down. It's one of the probably top 5 in terms of discussion since I've been on the board. It keeps popping up. Clearly, there's a need, there's no question about that. It's one of many needs, but we'll get, Michael and I will get back to the board within a month with our idea of the direction we should go, and then, of course, the board as a whole has to decide whether they think that's appropriate, and as Susan mentioned, there is a sidewalk committee too. But you're right, there is some planning that has to be done, and there has to be more clarity in terms of what we are going to do, so.
I mean, our staff is ready to proceed once that decision is made. We did talk about how we would fund that with our financial advisor, as well as in-house with Public Works, and and how he would, and his staff would go about proceeding. You know, we're ready, but we need direction. And I think that, Spring Street, in terms of the road money, which is 3.5 million, a portion of that, 2.5, excuse me, 2.5 million, for road improvements. We are recommending Spring Street because of the water main problems and the lack of sidewalks, the lack of curbing, and really the need for the improvement of that road, which is really a main artery between our schools too. A lot of children walk that, and a lot of people use that road to get to High Street where the schools are and Main Street where the schools are. So as I said, we're ready to proceed and implement a bond in those regards. In terms of the park, the Route 17 park, it's the same. In terms of process, that committee is up and running and doing a lot of work. Our two liaisons, I know, work with that committee. And just to give you a brief synopsis on that, what we're working with and going to be proceeding, I hope, because we talked with Bruce Chudwick on this, that is to get Weston and Sampson to do the necessary engineering changes. Because what we put out on the ballot is not the same as what Weston and Sampson had given us originally. It was reduced. So Weston and Sampson would need to do all of that engineering changes, so those bid documents would be ready. When we looked at the contract, those are their documents. While we own them, any changes would be made by those engineers. So we're working on that. And then at the same time, we could utilize the town engineer for inspection services on the construction or another entity. But those are just some of the preliminary discussions that we've had, but we need to proceed on that, especially in terms of getting the engineering redone, and that would include the purchase of a small piece of land that would be the entrance and the re-engineering of that road. That's all included in the bond, and the cost, probable cost. So we're getting ready to proceed with that in short order. That's not per se in your budget, because what's in the budget is the cost associated with the engineering, no, excuse me, the interest, right, Tom?
So,
For the bond. Yes.
yeah, there's an interest cost, issuance cost, we have to, so, you know, although we have those allotments, you know, as we work through this with our FA, you know, there's not, we don't have the whole amount to spend, there's issuance costs that have to be allocated, issuance costs to the multiple issuances.
And the way we advertised it, Susan, we are able to purchase that land out of those
With the
funds.
proceeds of the bond, Ben, what I still need to make sure, does the referendum trump any town meeting? Which I suspect it does, because within the probable cost estimate of September 6, 2016, it included the purchase and the land improvements to that entrance. So I would presume that permission has been given to us. As you know, the charter says when you purchase land, you have to get permission, and we've gotten permission. But I'll double check that with Bruce Chudwick. Did I leave anything out? I know committee members are here, commission members. Ralph?
Obviously trying to right now.
And if we can take the funds out of that,
Yes.
I like that.
Yep. Anything you want to add?
Yeah,
Mike?
just a couple of things.
Sure.
You know, a lot of work goes into this through the directors and our commission. And a lot of this stuff is catch up, trying to catch up from previous years. I know it's a lot of money. And we can't keep capital leasing because obviously you see the rates are going up. Sooner or later, it's not going to be prohibitive to do it. And we only have 135,000 in general taxation dollars. So where are we heading? Where are we heading down the future? We got to put some more hard money into this plan. I mean, how big is the budget now? What's our budget for the town? 32 million. And we use general taxation, not counting debt service, 135,000 for capital projects. We cut over 2,700,000 out of the request. We really had to have a serious discussion with the Board of Selectmen and the commission where we're headed. You know, we do the best we can. A lot of this stuff is simple to put in because it's either broken, doesn't work, or is outdated. So the year wasn't bad. It's just a lot of work on the directors. I mean, when you make cuts, I hope you come back to either myself or a commission member or even the directors and ask them what could be cut. I know it's a bad budget year. The state of Connecticut's killing us, just like we said was gonna happen in August. We had reevaluation, it's another issue. I understand you have a lot of decisions to make, but where are we headed? I mean, it's a lot of work.
Good questions. And I do think that the financing has been approached very well. I think that our finance director is doing a great job in trying to utilize the resources that he's given. And I also know that in terms of, we're trying with this Rural Development Fund, USDA, to look into that for some of these projects. We may be able to save some in that area, particularly for sidewalks too, and roads. That may help with some of the issuance costs. So that's good.
Trying to look at either the USDA rural development that's based upon our area or accessible for that. I think it's in around a 3-point some odd loan for as long as you want, pretty much between 10 and 30 years. There are some short-term financing if it was required to be done in that. There's also a possibility of checking the open market of some of the current banks that we do business with, as well as some of the FA knows, just requesting, on a 10-year note, will you fund, these improvements, and what's your rate, and see if the rate's anything worthwhile to save additional bonding costs and issuance costs. Otherwise, we can go get the ratings, go and get the bond issuances. Obviously, for some of the large projects, we're gonna have to. But if there's a way to get some of the other smaller projects where you're not going out to the full bond, the FA's review the options, try to get a costing of what's best for us. And to the point here, I mean, I understand and I agree that I would love to have more money into capital. But I do, I think in this instance, what you're seeing is this year that is going up in lieu of capital. Capital costs are being expended different, and you're just not seeing it in the transition here. What would have to occur next year, though, there will be that additional leasing that's there for that year. We'll probably need to see the pickup, though, on the other side into your allocation into capital, because you're going to have to get to you have to start funding things that aren't fundable through a lease. So some of these are, the front of, some of the Board of Ed components, some of their parking lots, some of their windows, their track. On the town side, I know we have a lot of the masonry work in front of the police department. There's multiple parking lots that that need to be redone, as well as some of these projects here that they're talking about in the parks, and the upgrades, as well as just windows in the town hall that continue, windows in other buildings, garage doors in numerous buildings. There's generators in numerous buildings that are aged that need to go. So there's all those type of things. But I mean, I think this year the intent was to try to do as much as you can with the mill rate, going in through the lease program and utilizing it that way. But always if as you're going through deliberations, if you see fit to add to those expenses, then feel free.
Thank you, Tom.
Any questions?
Not at this moment for me, but I'm sure I'll have some. Mike, you all set?
I'm all set.
For tonight?
Yep.
Please join us next week when we start deliberations, April 4th. Love to have you come back, which is Tuesday, correct? Tuesday. Tom, how much more do you have for us tonight?
We're done.
You're done? Do you anticipate a need for a workshop tomorrow night?
No, I think we'll start with the deliberations next week.
And if any of you have any questions, please send them into the office, either to me or to Tom, so that we can get some answers for you. I want to thank all our directors and commissioners, and Kitch, even being sick, she came tonight. Thank you, Kitch, for coming tonight.
Thank you for making it happen. I appreciate everybody. Thanks.
Get well soon.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Kathy, seconded by Ben. All in favor?
Aye.